Thank you very much. I work with Norstat, and we have done a survey on this topic because I was thinking at some point that we lose a perspective here in this debate. We often hear from labor unions, companies, politicians, and so forth, but we rarely hear from consumers and media. We hear media about themselves having an opinion about this. So we wanted to look into what do the consumers think? Are they aware of this concept of a sharing economy? Have they used it? What are their opinions about it? And so forth. We've heard a figure about how many have. Excuse me, let's start with how many actually know what the sharing economy is if we just present the concept like that. And it turns out about one fourth knows what it is, but we have to adjust it a little bit lower because it turns out that some misunderstand it and think it has something to do with sharing within a family. So say around 20%, and that's also the number we get from those that actually have used services from the sharing economy when we present them with what we mean by it. And this is a higher number than what we've heard from others here today. This is very recent figures. Turns out that in our data we cannot see. We had a hypothesis that maybe they are less or more satisfied with the services from the sharing economy than from the counterparts in the traditional economy. We don't see that in our data. That people seem to be quite happy with Uber, Airbnb, and services like that, but they are also quite happy with regular hotels and taxi companies. But what are the problems that the consumers see? And mainly it is about telling quality beforehand. That seems to be an issue here. And also being aware of, do these providers have sufficient insurances and do they follow laws and regulations? That also seems to be a concern. But they seem to be less concerned about labor unions losing power, traditional businesses losing customers and need for staff. And on the positive side, they think that sharing economy gives examples of more efficient use of resources and diversity of services, and also cheaper services, of course. Also, to somewhat smaller extent, but still it's there, it is that the sharing economy makes the actual providers of services earning more rather than fun staying with middlemen. And then another question comes up. If the vast majority have not used services from the sharing economy, what are the obstacles here? And well, the non-users don't really see much of need for these services, or they don't know how to use them. But in general, people are quite positive to the sharing economy. However, we also see that 16% lack trust of the providers. So that could be an issue here to overcome the trust gap. So all in all, I think there are like two things coming out of this. Firstly, there seems to be a large gap between the actual positive attitude for the services from the sharing economy and the conversion to actual having used these services, and this probably tells us that this area will expand a lot in a short period of time. And secondly, we see that there is a somewhat different view from the consumers compared to media, politicians, labor unions, etc. I would say.
Okay, fine, thank you. So the word is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Is this working?
Yeah. Yes, it's
That's
working.
good.
Yes.
Perfect. Maybe just a few words on what Deemly is and the company that I'm running. So essentially, we are a reputation and social verification startup working to help platforms build trust, but also build trust between users. So all the comments that have been made about trustworthy rating systems and transferable sort of CVs or sharing economy passports. That's essentially what we're doing, and I'm happy to discuss that more with any of you. I also wear a different hat today because I'm also the co-founder of Sharing Economy Denmark, and I'm based out of Copenhagen. So I'm really happy to see the things that are launching here today as well. But I was asked to sort of dive deeper into the issue or the topic of trust. And I think when you look at the statistics, you say 16%. I've seen even up to 49% in Denmark don't trust the sharing economy, and even up to 80% in the US if you go there. So it is definitely a big barrier. Obviously there is trust, because otherwise there wouldn't be any sharing economy businesses here. But also when you ask the platform owners, 9 out of 10 identify trust as their main issue for actually growing. So this is a big topic. When I'm asked to discuss trust or the notion of trust, I think it's important that we distinguish the different kinds of trust that needs to be fulfilled. And I usually talk about 3 different levels that needs to be fulfilled. So if you're a user going into a sharing economy transaction, the first thing you need to accept is a concept of sharing, right? Is this something that's normal? Is this something that my neighbors and my family are doing? Is it even legal? So when the government or the media are discussing or bashing Airbnb and Uber, that's also a big difficulty for some of the smaller platforms, because it's generally not trust building when we talk bad about the sharing economy. The second level is, do we trust the sharing economy platform as a business? Do they have 24-hour support? What happens if something goes wrong? Do they have insurance, and so on? Trustful rating systems could also be one. But then essentially the most important level of trust is the peer-to-peer trust. So do I trust the one I'm staying with, the one I'm driving with? If I rent someone to come fix my IKEA furniture, can I trust that person? And that's what we're working with. So what we hear from the users that we engage with is that this is really important for them to get this sharing economy passport or CV to essentially transfer that into regular jobs or maybe even credit ratings and so on. So we're seeing a lot of developments in this area.
Oh, interesting. Thank you very much. So Maria, now I turn to you, because you have 366 days of experience of trust, among other things. So please tell us, what are your views on this?
Thank you. Yeah, I decided to do a project for 1 year that I called 366 Days of Sharing. And I decided to try as many apps and platforms as I could find the sharing economy. And to blog about it. And it's been an amazing experience. Are you hearing me well?
It's a bit lagging, but if you speak slowly, I think that's a good issue.
Okay. Yeah, I had an amazing experience for 1 year. More than 200 guests in my home. I did ride sharing, home restaurants, rented out sports gear, even my toilet. And I think it's super interesting how this builds trust in people. My first recommendation is that all those people that don't know much about
I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that, please?
I think that my first recommendation is that all those people that don't know too much about the sharing economy, they should just try and dive into it. Because it's a great way of meeting new people and also having interesting experiences.
Can I ask you a question? Did you experience any trust issues, any safety issues? I mean, with all these people in your home, did you ever get afraid or so?
No, actually, what I found surprising is how well it worked. Meeting all these people, I had problems whatsoever during 1 year. And I think that's amazing. I think it tells a lot about people in general. You can trust strangers, but it also says a lot about these platforms.
I think
That
I have to cut you here because I think we have a problem with the sound. I'm sorry, but I think we got the main message. You didn't experience really any issues trust-wise or safety-wise, and you recommend everybody to just try to go into the business, so to speak. Don't be afraid. Just try it. Okay. Do you have any comments, any further to add, or should we ask the, yeah?
I can build a little bit on that. I think it's a beautiful experience that you've gone through, and what we see is that right now the sharing economy is also in its infancy. So a lot of the people that are partaking in the sharing economy activities are first movers. So they're usually not, scared or nervous. That's sort of part of their mindset. But what we will see when we get into the mainstream that maybe Airbnb and Uber are moving into now is that you will experience more trust issues. So I think it also depends on the personality type and sort of where the business and the industry is growing right now.
I was wondering also about your survey. Did you dive into why there is a lack of trust?
No, actually we didn't.
No?
No. That would have been interesting.
Because what you said, if I didn't get you wrong, that there's not really big differences between, platform industry, if I could say so, and the traditional one, that the mistrust can be everywhere. Was that right?
Well, no, that was not actually trust.
No?
That was more about like the general satisfaction.
Okay, so satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's quite equal between the
Yes.
both. Okay. Audience, any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Nicholas Albies from KDH, and thank you for bringing in some statistics into the game here. I really, really appreciate that, because the perspective, not people aren't more or less, for that matter, happy with the solutions that they provide, these sharing economies. Did you see? Oh, let me continue. So it's sort of a two-part question. But they feel that they get bigger diversity, and they feel that it's cheaper services. Now that's a little interesting. That okay, maybe you don't get better services, but they're cheaper. So what are we doing there? People say, oh, this is good. I would actually say it's bad, because there's something in the between that you should be paying for. Maybe you're pressing somebody, but you're not willing to pay. You're decreasing the willingness to pay. This is sort of problematic. The first question, and I would like to see react to that. Throw it out there, but the first question is actually, do you see any difference in satisfaction levels if you segment the market? So say young or a certain population there, or older, and if you were to segment it by age or other categories, did you see any differences in the satisfaction then?
No, actually, we don't. We have too small data for doing that segmentation. When it comes to age and segments, we just see that the younger population have tried more these services. But when it comes to satisfaction, no, it's harder there to see any differences there. You were also mentioning there. Let me think. What did you say? You said about the. We were not paying for something. Yeah. What we see also is that they think. I think that can be explained by the consumers think that the middlemen get less from, and the providers actually get more from what you pay for the service. So it kind of makes sense to not lose anything, so to speak. You see what I mean? But that's my interpretation of their answers, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you like to comment on that? No?
I think there's something interesting in terms of the motivations, and you said satisfaction might be coming from earning or saving more money. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if that was part of your statistics, but at least all other research that I've read on this topic is that the financial aspect is actually the biggest motivator. And then after that comes, the social aspect, the fact that we might be helping the environment, the fact that it's a novelty or you're sort of a first mover. So I think the motivation aspect of why you take part in the sharing economy is quite complex, but as far as I've seen is the financial gain is the main driver of it.
Okay. Yeah. More questions? Are you getting tired, folks?
Should have had more sugar in the break.
All right, good.
Hi. I'm interested in not so much trust before we start participating in the sharing economy, but could you maybe all comment a little bit about trust as you participate in the sharing economy, improvement of platforms, improving trust between people, between generations, that sort of thing. And how can platforms learn from research and from aggregators of identity and trust scores to improve their services?
I can start. I think, the general positive attitude towards the sharing economy and the low number of having tried actually indicates that there would be a willingness to try at least certain services. And I think just getting people to try is the key here. And what we heard here is that once you try, you basically think it is safe, it is trustworthy. So, yeah.
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I think a few comments on that. The first point is that what we see is that when users actually start sharing, they're much more likely to share again on the same platform, but also across platforms. So as a platform, it might be interesting for you to identify what users are already sharing on different platforms, because they're most likely to be good active users for you. And then I guess in terms of what we do on our technology side is that when we supply a platform with our technology, we can see that by adding these aggregated trust profiles, as we call it, activity actually increases with up to 150% on the platform, because the data you get about people, the previous reviews, the verifications and so on, makes people trust you even more. So there are definitely some technological advances that you can take that are interesting, especially if you're a very new platform where you have that cold start problem of no one having a reputation already, right? Yeah.
Okay, did you catch the question, Maria?
Yeah, somewhat. But I think it takes some time for the users to get used to these rating systems and other tools that the platforms use to build trust. But after a while, you realize that it works maybe even better than many other forms for trust in the society. I think it makes many regulations that we have today obsolete in the future.
We had exactly the same comment from one of the politicians earlier, that the review systems could replace legislation, really. So maybe in a couple of years, we'll see. I don't think we're there yet. So any more questions from the audience? Do you have any online questions, Anastasia? No? Any concluding remarks from the panel?
I can just say that we talk about trust. We can look at in the traditional economy. Trust is not something you automatically gain just because you're in the traditional economy. It takes time and effort to build it there also. So it's not a unique problem to the sharing economy.
Exactly. That's a good remark. Sorry.
I think
There's one more. Okay. Could we have the microphone again? The last question. Here, in the middle. Here. Yes.
Hey, so trust is a very interesting aspect, and I'm wondering if you maybe know or have seen any statistics or studies seeing an increment or the like, and you talked about different types of trust. That was also very interesting, because most people don't think about the different types of trust. But if you've seen in the different segments of trust any increase amongst the population that both provide and consume these type of services. So is the sharing economy increasing the trust in society, the social capital? That is the question.
Okay.
That's a super relevant question, and I'd like to also draw it into what's going on in Denmark right now. I don't know how many have followed it, but essentially 2 years ago, when I sort of got into this business, the general population thought, oh, the sharing economy is cool, it's interesting, we like it, perhaps we can help the environment with it. And the government was quite open to also helping these businesses because they saw it as a growth potential and all these things that the politicians are saying today. But so what happened last month was that the Danish government made some changes to the legislation that essentially made it impossible for Uber to be active in Denmark. And what happened was that the media just went crazy and, bashed the sharing economy as a whole industry. And so what we hear from the Danish startups that we work with is that the users that they're trying to get is that they're scared of taking part because they think the sharing economy as a whole is illegal. So for Denmark as sort of a case study on that topic, I don't know the numbers and the statistics behind it, but we can see and hear that there is definitely a decrease in trust towards the industry as a whole. And that affects the businesses.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting. I think this will have to conclude this panel. Maria, thank you very much from abroad.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Big hand.
BizGrid, events made by you.